Severe weather warnings across multiple regions, tropical cyclone development possible, heavy rainfall expected. That's what we're re-looking at over the next week to 10 days. Right now across Australia, conditions are about as varied as you can get. And it's worth understanding where we're restarting from because that sets up everything that S coming. Brisbane and South East Queensland, you've been copping it. The humidity S been off the charts. 38 degrees this arvo with humidity making it feel closer to 45. That S, not just uncomfortable, that S dangerous if you are working outside. Up in far north Queensland around Mount Carbine, they had 2 massive thunderstorms last night between 1 and 3 a.m. 81 millimetres fell in just a few hours. The wet season S well underway up there. Compare that to Cairns and the Lamb Range. Bone dry. If conditions don to change soon, we were looking at serious bushfire risk in areas that normally don to have to worry about it. Down in Townsville, you are getting intermittent rain. Lovely and drenching when it comes through, then it stops. That on and off pattern continues through the weekend. Darwin was forecast for heavy rain today, according to the Bureau of Meteorology. Hasn't he eventuated yet? That S wind shear at work, which we'll get into in a moment. South East Queensland, particularly around Laidley and the Granite Belt. You had severe storms rip through yesterday. Trees down, power out, property damage. That system came through fast and hard. The warnings gave you time to prepare, which is exactly what we want. Now let's talk about what S developing and why you need to be paying attention. We've got 3 separate systems to monitor. Tropical low 15U out in the Indian Ocean. The remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Koji pulling into the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf. And the system we're most concerned with for Queensland, a developing low in the Gulf of Carpentaria that S expected to move into the Coral Sea. Start with the Indian Ocean system. Tropical low 15U has been trying to organise, but it's getting absolutely hammered by wind shear. Wind shear is upper level winds in the atmosphere that rip tropical systems apart. For thunderstorms, wind shear between 30 and 40 knots is excellent, gets supercells going, but for tropical cyclones, it's the opposite. These systems need rotation around a common centre. And when you've got winds pushing and squishing that centre, the whole thing struggles to organise. The sweet spot for tropical cyclone development is about 5 to 15 knots of wind shear, enough to get good outflow going, those clouds streaming away from the system in the upper atmosphere, but not so much that it tears the system apart. Right now, 15U is dealing with values well above that. It's rotating, there is convection, but it's messy. Not a threat to Western Australia at this stage. The Joseph Bonaparte Gulf system, the remnants of Koji, is more interesting. You can see intense convection building. Those showers and thunderstorms have been firing up throughout the last 24 hours. But look at the cloud pattern. It is grainy, lined, almost shredded. That S wind shear again. Northeast winds aloft are displacing the convection to the western side of the system. Over the next 72 to 96 hours, 3 to 4 days, we're expecting lots of heavy shower and thunderstorm activity through the top end of the Northern Territory, Darwin, the Tiwi Islands, and into the top end of Western Australia. The really heavy stuff is forecast to remain offshore, particularly to the west of the system. That takes the worst of it away from Darwin. Darwin, you're still looking at significant rainfall, could see up to 250 millimetres through the course of the event. Minor flooding possible in some drains and low-lying areas. The northwest generally copes well with heavy rain, but communities around Wyndham, Coonawarra, particularly if you are on dirt road access, you could be cut off for a prolonged period if we get intense precipitation. The Kimberley coastline is the hot seat for this one. North of Coonawarra across to the Mitchell Plateau, you are looking at 200 to 400 millimetres throughout next week. That S solid rainfall. Now here S where it gets interesting for Western Australia. If this system can get itself offshore, west of the coastline and into the open Indian Ocean, conditions out there are extremely favourable for significant intensification. We're talking severe tropical cyclone status. Category 3, possibly Category 4. Major forecast models are divided on the exact track. The European model has been flip-flopping, had several consecutive runs taking it offshore, then crashing it into the Port Hedland area. Now it's got it hugging the coastline a bit more. The ICON model shows similar uncertainty, but the ensemble models, which blend multiple forecast runs together and are generally very accurate, are calling for an offshore track. If the system gets offshore and can exist out there for 2.5 to 3 days, it'll intensify quickly. For areas between Exmouth up towards Kununurra, including Broome, Karratha, Port Hedland, Dampier and Onslow, you need to be watching this situation very closely. You could be looking at a tropical cyclone coming through between the 22nd and 25th of January. That is Wednesday through Saturday of next week. The signals are getting pretty strong. This is something to keep close tabs on. If it takes aim at the West Australian coastline, it is going to be quite strong, but if it hugs the coastline instead of going offshore, it'll be significantly weaker. Land interaction prevents rapid intensification. Make sure your seasonal preparations are ready. February, March and April are the big months for tropical cyclone activity offshore from Western Australia. Even if this particular system doesn't impact you directly, it is a good reminder to have your preparations sorted. Now, the Queensland situation. This is what most of you are here for. Throughout the next 36 to 48 hours, we're expecting an enhancement in shower and thunderstorm activity across the Gulf of Carpentaria and into the Cape York Peninsula, particularly through the western coast of Cape York, but also across portions of the far northeastern Queensland coastline. The Cassowary Coast and the Daintree rainforest will see on and off periods of heavy showers and thunderstorms. The monsoon trough is going to set itself up somewhere through the Gulf of Carpentaria between Sunday night and early Monday morning. You've got southeasterly winds clashing with southwesterly or west-southwesterly flow. That creates convergent zones. When winds collide like that, air has nowhere to go but up. That S, when you get heavy rainfall, watch for heavy rainfall from showers and thunderstorms through the Cassowary Coast, especially Sunday night, Monday and into Tuesday. Development of the low pressure system is expected to be very slow. Similar to how Tropical Cyclone Koji got itself going, that system took many days to really get rolling. We're talking about a weak, broad, low pressure system developing from about Monday or Tuesday onwards, but it is going to be a really big, broad, messy system. You can see that low pressure getting itself organised in the southern parts of the Gulf of Carpentaria. But very broad, disorganised, messy rotation. That means it's really going to struggle in the grand scheme of things here, SY. Tropical low 14U is out in the Coral Sea near New Caledonia. It's developing nicely. Could become a tropical cyclone in the next 2 or 3 days. Tropical cyclones, Dante-like, interacting with each other. When you've got two systems fiddling around with each other, interacting with each other's troughs and inflow features, you get messy results. Our Queensland system is going to be relatively close to 14U. That interaction is going to prevent it from organising efficiently, not to mention the fact that it is going to be very monsoonal in nature. Lots of moisture coming in, particularly on the northern and eastern side of the system. Similar to how Koji started its life, it failed to organise properly right up until about landfall, when it finally got itself back up to tropical cyclone status. Category 2 for a brief period. Forecast models take the Queensland system offshore from the Cape York Peninsula into the Coral Sea by the end of next week. Likely between Thursday and Friday, the 22nd or 23rd of January respectively. That should be the end of the very heavy rainfall, the on and off very heavy rainfall through Cape York Peninsula. Once this system heads offshore, it's expected to remain far enough away from the coastline where it will actually be able to organise. One, to be struggling due to land interaction, but it also one to be funneling ashore showers and thunderstorms in such a prevalent way. Less shower and thunderstorm activity, less rainfall across northern Queensland from about Thursday or Friday onwards. This system then heading out into the Coral Sea, we may see it approach the Queensland coastline, but in terms of a landfall right now, particularly a tropical cyclone equivalent landfall, one is not expected in the next 5 or 6 days. Chances do naturally come up a little bit because of forecast model uncertainty after about Friday, but it's not something to worry about right now. We just want to see where this tropical low develops and how far offshore from the Coral Sea coastline it actually goes before we start commenting on landfall chances around Townsville down towards Mackay. Just to reiterate, there's no point in worrying about it or being concerned. Of course, it's that time of the year, so that background chance is always going to be there. I am always going to be as honest as possible in these forecast updates. Please don't be worried. But there is, of course, that chance. We are in cyclone season. We need to be remembering that. My advice to you, what I'd be doing if I was in your situation. And keep in mind, I always give you what I would be doing, which is generally overkill. I would not be worrying about this system one bit. I'd just be monitoring the forecast every couple of days and checking for changes. I really doubt that this is going to become a concern for the Queensland coastline at any point in time, at least before Australia Day. I really don't see how this is going to become a concern for Queensland whatsoever. Forecast models do take it out. It does have a bit of a southerly track to it. Then it heads back out to sea again after about the 24th or 25th the following weekend. It would really have to emerge off the coastline around the Cardwell area for this to come ashore as a tropical cyclone. Even then, it may just have too much land interaction to really get itself rolling. Across northern Queensland, it doesn't look like it's going to be a concern. Even if it does develop close enough to the Queensland coast where it may actually threaten Queensland as a tropical cyclone, it is not going to be a strong one. Too much land interaction. This system is really shaping up to be good news. It's going to bring some much needed rainfall to some areas, particularly into pockets of the Cape York Peninsula on the western side especially, but it's also not expected to impact Queensland in a significant way. That is really good news indeed. Touching on that rainfall forecast, we are talking about an enhancement in shower and thunderstorm activity over the next 6 days. There will definitely be some good rainfall accumulations, particularly onto the western edge of the Cape York Peninsula. Falls between 150 to 250 millimetres, increasing to pockets of about 400 millimetres closer to where the low pressure system develops, likely in the southern Gulf of Carpentaria. Areas south of Waipa will likely see some significant rainfall accumulations. As this system emerges off into the Coral Sea, we'll see brief periods of heavy rainfall being swung into the backside of the system. That could put the Cardwell area and locations further north up to about Lockhart River in the firing line for heavier rainfall. Overall, I am not expecting falls to exceed 200 millimetres across the Cassowary Coast. 300 millimetres is an absolute ceiling. Really not expecting anything in the way of significant or very heavy rainfall. For locations south into the Herbert area, around Townsville, even south into the Burdekin and into the central Queensland coastline, you do need the tropical low to really approach the coastline in those areas for rainfall to become a significant problem. I don't think rainfall is going to become a problem in those areas at all. I just don't see this low pressure system coming in strong enough or close enough to the coastline at this point in time. Of course, that could change. But there are a lot of signals right now pointing that this system is not much for concern to Queensland. Watch the situation closely. A tropical low is likely to impact Queensland. A tropical cyclone, a week 1 Category 1 status is still a possibility, but anything over Category 3 status is not supported by any forecast models right now. Of course, that can change, but it's looking pretty unlikely. Forecast models are getting really good at the 7 to 10 day forecast period. That why recent forecasts have been hitting the mark consistently. Cairns and the Lamb Range, you mentioned conditions are dry. If it gets much drier, the Lamb Range will burn and there will be no stopping it. This system should bring you some relief, not a massive deluge, but enough to ease the fire danger. Keep an eye on the fire danger ratings from the Rural Fire Service. Total fire bans are possible if conditions deteriorate before the rain arrives. Brisbane, South East Queensland, the humidity you are dealing with right now continues through the weekend. It's been easily the driest wet summer many of you have seen. Lots of clouds. Bureau keeps forecasting storms to break the heat, but it only drizzles, then leaves. That pattern continues until we get a proper southerly change. Unfortunately, that is not arriving until early next week at the earliest. The pressure is still low, around 1,003 hectopascals in some areas. That is conducive for storm development, but you need the right trigger. Sunday night into Monday, we might see that trigger develop as the convergence zone sets up. For those in the granite belt around Warwick and Killarney, you copped that wild storm yesterday afternoon. Cyclonic winds, trees down, debris everywhere. That system came from the east without much warning. Just shows how quickly conditions can deteriorate. The Bureau had a heat wave warning but missed the severity of that particular cell. If you're in an area that saw damage, take the opportunity today or tomorrow while conditions are calmer to clean up debris, check for roof damage, secure anything that came loose. Another round of storms is possible early next week. Toowoomba, the humidity has been unpleasant. That continues. You are in the zone for potential thunderstorm activity Sunday night and Monday. Not expecting severe storms at this stage, but conditions can change quickly as we saw yesterday in the Granite Belt. Townsville, your on and off rain pattern continues through the weekend. The tropical low developing in the Gulf will enhance rainfall across your area from about Tuesday onwards. But as I mentioned, significant impacts are not expected. You are looking at beneficial rainfall rather than flooding rainfall. Monsoons seem to be headed south more often lately. Townsville traditionally gets a better wet season than Cairns. That is partly due to the topography and partly due to where the monsoon trough sets up. This year, the monsoon has been inconsistent. The Madden-Julian Oscillation, the MJO, has been in phases that don't favour persistent monsoonal flow. That S meant more hit-and-miss rainfall rather than sustained wet season conditions. Mount Carbine, you mentioned the two big thunderstorms last night between 1 and 3 a.m. 81 millimetres fell. That S, excellent rainfall. Sun's out this morning, but more rain is coming. You're ahead of where you were this time last year in terms of rainfall totals. 299 millimetres so far this year compared to 69 millimetres last year to this date. The ground has been parched, so it's sucking up the rain quickly. Only minor flooding so far. You are in the zone for continued rainfall through next week as the tropical low develops. Could see another 100 to 200 millimetres through the course of the event. That puts you well ahead for the season. Darwin, the forecast for heavy rain today hasn't materialised yet. That S, because the wind shear I mentioned earlier is displacing the convection offshore. The system needs to organise better before it can bring sustained heavy rainfall to Darwin proper. By tomorrow and Monday, conditions improve for rainfall as the system drifts further west and the wind shear decreases slightly. You are still looking at significant rainfall through the course of next week. Just not today as initially forecast. That's the nature of tropical meteorology. Small changes in positioning or wind shear can make a big difference in who gets rain and who stays dry. For those asking about the barometric pressure changes around 3 a.m. in the Granite Belt, that rapid pressure change you felt in your bones, that was the severe storm coming through. Rapid pressure drops often occur ahead of severe thunderstorm cells. If you've got old injuries or joint issues, you can feel those changes acutely. It's not pseudoscience. Pressure changes do affect the body, particularly if you've had previous trauma to muscles or joints. Some of you have noticed forecast models lately are opposite of what's been predicted. The Claremont situation and massive hail in South East Queensland being examples. Forecast models are excellent tools, but they are not perfect. We're dealing with chaotic systems. Small errors in initial conditions can lead to bigger errors in the forecast. That said, the ensemble approach, blending multiple model runs together, has been very accurate. The Google Weather Lab AI models have been particularly impressive. They nailed Tropical Cyclone Koji about 10 days out to within about 50 kilometres. That is remarkable accuracy. These AI models work by running dozens or even hundreds of simulations, each with slightly different initial conditions, then blending them together to find the most likely outcome. When the dots on the forecast map are close together, that S high certainty. When they spread out, that S low certainty and high variability between model runs. For the Western Australia system, those dots are relatively close together, indicating good model agreement on an offshore track and intensification. For the Queensland system, there is more spread, indicating less certainty about exact positioning and intensity. Looking at the tropical storm strike probability for next week, the 19th through the 26th of January, we've got two distinct pockets, 14U down towards New Caledonia and the Western Australia system. Chances pick up again in the Gulf of Carpentaria and out into the Coral Sea. There is a weak signal for our Queensland system. That means something is likely to develop, but intensity and exact track remain uncertain. We'll be watching that situation closely. For those asking about live coverage, if something severe forms near Brisbane, that depends on the severity and timing of the event. Live coverage is resource intensive. It's reserved for situations where a significant dangerous system is actively threatening populated areas. The current setup doesn't warrant live coverage at this stage. But continue monitoring forecasts. If the situation escalates, coverage will adjust accordingly. The jet stream position over the next week is crucial. If it stays well south of the continent, it'll help steer any developing cyclones away from the coast. If it lifts further north, it could interact with tropical systems and create more complex scenarios. Right now, it looks like the jet stream stays south, which is favourable for keeping systems offshore. Practical preparations. If you're in far north Queensland, Cape York or the Gulf region, standard wet season preparations apply. Make sure you've got supplies in case of road closures, fuel for generators if you're in remote areas, check your property drainage, secure loose items that could become projectiles in strong winds. If you're in the Kimberley or Pilbara regions of Western Australia, start thinking about cyclone preparations. It's still early days, but better to be ready. Check your cyclone kit, batteries, water, non-perishable food, first aid supplies, important documents in waterproof containers. If you're in a caravan or temporary structure, know where your nearest solid shelter is. For South East Queensland dealing with humidity and potential storms, stay hydrated. Check on elderly neighbours and mates, especially those without air conditioning. If severe storms do develop, bring in outdoor furniture, secure trampolines, check that stormwater drains around your property are clear. If the power goes out, and it's a possibility with severe storms, fill the bathtub with clean water before the system hits. Gives you drinking water and flushing water if the supply gets cut. Simple preparation that makes a big difference. For those in Brisbane asking about storms today, Saturday, conditions are marginal. Humidity S high, instability S there, but we need a trigger. Most likely time for storm development is late afternoon into early evening if it happens at all. Sunday into Monday looks more promising for widespread activity. The current situation is dynamic. Models will continue to update. Tracks will be refined. Intensity forecasts will change. That S normal. Check back for updates every day or two. Don T, obsess over every model run, but stay informed. This is cyclone season. This is what we do. We monitor, we prepare, we stay calm, and we make smart decisions based on the best available information. No panic, but no complacency either. The systems we're rewatching have the potential to bring beneficial rainfall to areas that need it. They also have the potential to cause problems if they intensify or track closer to the coast than expected. We're not there yet, but we're rewatching. Stay safe, look after your mates, check the Bureau of Meteorology for official warnings, and we'll keep you updated.